Obviously there's, all kinds of tension going on relative to the new administration. And I, I want to say that I'm doing this class on the Second Amendment to highlight uh, that it was a tool to set the stage for what's happening now. And in my view, it is following a playbook. I would, I think this is just my guess. My guess is that the administration is purposefully looking to provoke the public by and large to compel them to want to get out onto the street and protest. And as you can see, they have done that at town hall meetings and that sort of thing. But the optimum would be to have them marching in the streets and to have them marching at night. And because then it opens the door for vigilantes to come in and transform the demonstration into violence, which then opens the door for the Insurrection Act. And I think that they talked about that in the last administration, and I think there's a determination to do that now. And that would essentially be the end of the American government. It would we would purely be in a autocratic dictatorship, and there wouldn't be midterm elections. I still can't believe there would be midterm elections because it's too risky for the current administration. If there are midterm elections and Democrats have big time and take over both the House and the Senate, that would open up the door to impeachment, which also opens up the door to the criminal cases. And I can't imagine that they would risk that. But let's see what happens. Mind you, if you read closely about the people who are leading the charge here, they are people from the American, from the Heritage Foundation, which was a Charles Koch organization, and which there's an abundance of work out there that documents from the end of World War II how they created a group to attack America. They were deathly afraid of communism. They were deathly afraid of government contracting, government being involved in manufacturing. And so they were determined to end the love affair between Americans and America. So I've sent out multiple lists of bibliographies and suggestions. Don't take my word for it. Please go read the material. Very well documented, very well resourced, and it's important if we're going to understand what's going on today. I'm also reading a book now about the takeover, which is about it's written by Tim Ryback, a historian who's done an extensive amount of work on Hitler and the Nazi regime. And the takeover is not a big history book. It's a focused history on Hitler coming to power, and it's really very well written. It's a good book, and it really mirrors a lot of what is happening today. And so why did they pick the Second Amendment as their tool to drive wedges between the American people? And what I'm arguing is that it emerged during the Civil Rights Movement and the violence that emerged from that. you had multiple factions of the civil rights movement. One faction was of a mindset that did not support nonviolence, thought, look, we've tried that too long and it's time we fight back. And so cities were burning. We also had, just as I suggested, is that the forces in power can look to spark a violent demonstration by infiltrating what would have been otherwise a peaceful demonstration, so that there is violence that opens the door for more police action. The riots in Detroit have been examined, and it was concluded it was a police riot. It was initiated. The arson that started the fires was initiated by police, and that opened the door for police to deploy brutal tactics. And so while these demonstrations and riots were taking place, there was conflict, white, black. It was, people feared there was going to be a racial civil war, and it was easy to exploit those fears and emotions. Mind you, when you look at the American Revolution, the key tool for Adams and Franklin were to write articles aimed at inflaming white people by exploiting their fears of Black people and Native Americans. So this is something that is deep in our DNA. And it's important to understand that the National Rifle Association was a sportsman's club up until the 1970s, when it was taken over, a hostile takeover of the organization by those aligned with the business people who were determined to bring down the American government. So the idea was that you need to have a weapon to protect yourself, because we're leading into a race war. And I think it is important, I've raised the question before, but I think it is important to consider who benefits from children being killed in classrooms. Mind you, we have a government that is there to deal with problems as such and to find a way to counter that malady. However, we have been unable to do that. And it's important to understand that there are forces that want to sow a lack of confidence in government to be able to protect you. And that is a fundamental basis of terrorism. Small groups, guerrillas, what do they want to do? They want to perpetrate a horrific act so that the bulk of the population starts to believe that those in power can no longer protect you, lose faith in your government. Then you look for an alternative, and the alternative is the terrorist organization. So it's important to keep that in mind. So I want to show you, when I say that it was events related to the race riots, I want to show you several, just to, again, refresh from what we saw on TV in the mid-1960s.
Get the white man! Get the white man!
It was the most widespread, most destructive racial violence in American history. White people driving through the riot area were considered fair game, whether young or old, men or women. Their cars were battered, the drivers stoned, kicked and beaten, and the cars were burned. The mobs might groan and curse in disappointment when a white got away, and then cheer like a football crowd when a car went up in flames. The burning and looting, the shooting and beating went on for nearly a week. It began, as many race riots have begun, with the arrest of a Negro by white officers, right here at this corner. In this case, 2 young Negroes were stopped by California highway patrolmen and charged with drunk driving. There was a scuffle and a crowd gathered. The mother of the 2, they are brothers, joined in, and she and another woman the crowd thought was pregnant were pushed and shoved. Over and over, Negroes repeat the charge of police brutality. One who had pressed a number of brutality complaints and one of the most successful attorneys in Los Angeles is a Negro, Leo Branton. We asked him about the police claim that brutality charges are fully and fairly investigated.
Well, in theory, there are avenues of complaint open, but there are no meaningful avenues to redress the grievances of these people. I've tried them all, and I can say to you that there is no question but that under the present machinery as it exists and as it is being operated today, a complaint of police brutality by any Negro citizen goes almost completely unheeded.
The first thorough study of Negroes and how they live in this country was completed only a few months ago. Our government, which conducts detailed surveys of everything from sugar beets in Colorado to social habits in Cambodia, had never before taken a close look at the 21 million Negroes of America. Daniel Moynihan, until this summer Assistant Secretary of Labor, was in charge of the study and was staggered by it. Moynihan says the Negro family structure is collapsing, and we asked him the reasons.
We have had 35 years of disastrous unemployment, and for the Negro male. He has never gotten over the Depression. He had 4 fair to middling years in the Second World War and maybe a good year in the Korean War, and that's it.
Although he denied to the police any part in the looting and rioting, he took me on a tour of some of the places he said he helped to burn, as casual as a stroll in the park.
I threw the firebomb right in the front window, A friend of mine went in the store towards the back and threw a firebomb in the bag, and the place went up in flames. But it was pretty well emptied by the looters and so forth.
There isn't much left, is there?
There is a burned up shirt and so forth that could have been gotten, could have been used.
But most things were taken out before you burned.
As much as we could possibly give. Then we would decide to burn, and the cry in the streets was, "Burn, baby, burn."
Why would you burn out this kind of place?
We decided to burn this store because we felt this man hadn't been doing nothing but gaming on us anyway.
So serious and explosive is the situation, says the commission, that unless it is checked, the August riots may be only a curtain raiser to what could blow up one day in the future.
Here. Okay. And
I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind.
I remember when we were first made members of the Civil Disturbance Unit, we were taken down to this big CDU storeroom where all the weapons and the chemicals and the tear gas was stored on shelves. We're telling us, there was enough tear gas there to control any kind of a demonstration or riot. Well, in 1968, we ran out of tear gas the very first night.
We could look down on 14th Street and everything was on fire. My mother came out and she started crying because she thought the world had ended. Fire trucks wouldn't stop because people were throwing bricks at it. It was a horrific scene.
promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
We're going to use
As Governor of the State of Michigan, I do hereby officially request the immediate deployment of federal troops into Michigan to assist state and local authorities in reestablishing law and order in the city of Detroit. I am joined in this request by Jerome P. Kavanaugh, Mayor of the city of Detroit.
We're here at the request of Governor Romney. We're about to go downtown and meet with him and with Mayor Kavanaugh and to discuss such specific plans for support and assistance as may be required.
Law and order have broken down in Detroit, Michigan. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights.
After I was shot, I just fell to, right to the pavement because I didn't know how many shots were coming off after that.
Were you bewildered or angry or what?
I don't think it's right for my people to act the way that they're acting. This is all that I can say about the thing because we're fighting one war now in Vietnam and we're losing as it is. So, I mean, why should we come back here and fight a war among ourselves?
And so what we have is these, the phenomenon of the civil rights movement are people, there's a whole class we can do about it, who have been subjected to violence, brutality, horrible treatment, Jim Crow, all of that finally erupts in protest. Protests emerge into violence. And so it frightens people. And what manipulators who are looking to find ways in which to drive wedges between Americans recognize there is fear in the white community, and what they can do is exploit it. And so they have campaigns that is, you have to protect your family, the protect your family argument, defend your family from attack, protect your property. Fear of attack by who? By Black people. And so it is a successful mission. Gun sales go through the roof. Now we have consequences of that, which is we have people with guns who are going into schools and killing kids. And so we talk about protect the children argument, prohibit automatic war weapons, conduct background checks, licensing regulation. We have all that kind of fight going on. Meanwhile, the argument is, wait a minute, you got to have a weapon to defend your family and protect them from attack. And it has been a very successful, let me get to this one. Let me get past. Okay. Stop that share. Let me get out of that. Get to this. to here. Which brings us to here.
That image was quite controversial to a lot of people. Some people saw it as irresponsible, some people saw it as dangerous, threatening, whereas other people, and I think including you, saw it as a symbol of something very different. What was it to you?
Powerful. Protecting. That's my freedom.
But the people who criticize you, what do they see?
A right-wing lunatic.
18 years ago, I travelled across the United States, exploring America's deadly love affair with the gun. I witnessed the grim results of these weapons in hospital emergency rooms, morgues, and the confused aftermaths of mass shooting sprees. After each new massacre, the newspaper headlines were always the same. Why did it happen here? Since my book was published in the year 2000, more than 500,000 Americans have been killed by firearms in the USA. 527,000 people dead and many more injured. I decided to return to the subject, to track down each gun owner who I'd met and photographed those years ago, to understand why, despite this death toll, there is such fierce resistance to even moderate gun control laws in the USA.
His finger wasn't even on the trigger. That's not what the picture is about. He's not trying to harm me. He's trying to protect me.
I'm looking out for myself, my family, my neighbors.
A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Second Amendment in every state constitution guarantees my right to keep and bear arms. Why? For my personal safety and to preserve liberty. That's why. It's called America.
Pecan 911, what's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here.
Mass shootings in America have become almost commonplace, but the Sandy Hook School massacre, where 6- and 7-year-olds were targeted by a gunman, reached a new level of horror and cut to the raw nerve of the American gun debate.
Did it cause me to want to strengthen gun laws? Absolutely not. I think if one of those teachers, the principal, whoever had had a gun, that young man possibly would not have killed anyone, or very few of the children would have died.
Do you think a teacher is going to be able to cope with a gunman with an AR-15 assault rifle?
I think a properly trained teacher can adjust to any threat that they deal with.
I think it's friggin' fantastic that certain school districts are training their teachers so they can carry a weapon in school.
We go through drills and we put ourselves in real scenarios. It was interesting to see how fast we get on the buses, how fast we do this, who actually got hit by the paintball gun. It was pretty cool, but pretty, real life scary too. The SWAT team comes into our room and they're like, okay, everybody out, put your hands up, and we're all putting our hands up and we're terrified, and takes us out, so.
You had a SWAT team.
Not being given money by the government to run around and do whatever they want to. There's a lot of things we could address. Maybe that's not the only problem. It could be some mental health issues. Could be drugs causing these problems. I don't know the answer, but we are not the problem.
Can anything be done? Should anything be done?
No. Let natural selection take its course.
Let me get to my next one here. So, yeah, let's have a look at the idea of natural selection.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get it done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah. Can't wait. Today is the day that it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will run in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power, they will know who I am. I am nothing. I am no one. My life is nothing and meaningless. Everything that I hold dear, I let go beyond your half. Every day I see the world ending another day. I live a lone life, live in seclusion and solitude. I hate everyone and everything. With the power of my AR, you will all know who I am. I had enough of being told what to do and when to do. I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life, you're all the dumbass. You're all stupid and brainwashed by these political government programs. You will all see, you will all know who my name is. My love for you, Angie, will never go away. I hope to see you in the afterlife. When one day or another, you will end and we'll all die. Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there, I'll go into the school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at
I don't want to reach emergency. Please help, please help. Someone just hit a shooter. A lot of blood. Please help, please.
In February 2018, our school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, was attacked by a gunman.
My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida.
My teacher yelled code red, and a code red means that there's an active shooter on campus.
Oh my God! Hands, put your hands up. Please. Put your phones away. Put your phones away.
The SWAT team are yelling at us. They were like, run, run, run. As I'm running, like I couldn't help but look around, and it was just the scariest image. It was like I'm looking at death. Like this is death.
17 of our friends and classmates were killed. We're going to take this to the national stage. We're not going to be ignored. I'm a British student at the school. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting,
What do we want?
we made it our mission to bring about change in America
Enough is enough!
and take our campaign to the steps of the White House.
Lewis, you wanted to talk about an initiative you have.
In about an hour, I'd like everyone who has a Twitter account to go on Twitter and maybe send a message with the hashtag #NeverAgain. We don't want this to just be another thoughts and prayers and everyone go to bed. We want to carry this across the country and want to stop this from happening ever again. We're the generation that grew up with mass shootings, but we're also the generation that grew up with social media. The idea that we could use that to reach so many people at once showed that we could mobilize and make a change.
We are MSC, we're here to make some history.
After weeks of campaigning, we had a breakthrough.
To the students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, you made your voices heard.
Just to interrupt for a minute, I think it is important to see that these are appeals that make sense. They seem to be what needs to be done. Even Rick Scott is saying, we've heard you. But it's important for you to know that the people who have put together this movement to dismantle America, beginning in World War II, they don't care. If you watch the assault that's taking place now on the federal government and dismantling it, there is they do not care. People can, go to town hall meetings, write letters, all of that. They don't care. They are now on the march to take over. And it's hard to think that there are people who are unmoved by children being killed in schools. But there are.
A bill is passed in Florida that introduces a 3-day waiting period on all gun purchases and raises the minimum age for buying automatic weapons from 18 to 21. It also bans the bump stocks that increase the firing speed of these weapons.
You helped change our state, you made a difference. You should be proud.
But the NRA immediately sues the state of Florida to block the changes, claiming the bill infringes on the Second Amendment. We know we have to keep the pressure on. We're staging a school walkout in protest.
The news media gets bored with a story and then move on to the next one. With social media, we can keep it day in, day out, as long as we have a base large enough to keep it there.
We want democracy alongside! This is what democracy looks like!
3,000 schools around America join us in the walkout.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Kyle was on the 3rd floor of the building and was shot as he tried to run away.
It's a nice massage.
It looks like it feels good, but no.
Kyle has had 5 operations so far. Surgeons have done 2 skin grafts to help fix his ankle.
What is that? Is that a BB gun? Or is it like paintball?
It's a BB gun. I'm pro-gun more-ish. I feel like you shouldn't take away guns. You should definitely have limits on them, but you shouldn't take away.
What do you think about the AR-15?
Oh, I like them. I shoot them. They're just fun to shoot at targets.
It's the day of March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming from across America to march on the Capitol. The march looks set to be one of the largest youth-led protests in history.
This has kind of been the culmination of everything the Never Again movement has been working towards for the last month.
We know what we want. We know how to get it, and we are not waiting any longer.
Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out! Vote them out!
I am not here for me. I am here for you. So you don't ever have to fear of getting shot in your own classroom. Either you
This will be a, let me get this out of here. This is a preview for next week.
And Patriots.
Let me get
Attention, Patriots. Broadcasting from the free zones. Radio Free Redoubt begins in 5, 4, 3.
This is North Idaho, a scenic part of the United States nestled against the Canadian border in the Pacific Northwest. The city of Coeur d'Alene sits by the edge of a beautiful lake and is surrounded by tree-clad hills. It is also one of the least diverse places in the country, with 90% of the population being white. More recently, it has become the place where a lot of unhappy Trump voters, conservative Christians, and supporters of the Second Amendment have come to live in what is known as the American Redoubt. The Redoubt is a movement of people from across the United States who want to live together under shared ideals of small government, self-sufficiency, and Christian principles. I've come here to find out if it also encourages domestic terrorism, religious extremism, and the formation of a white ethno-state.
We were very unhappy with the government in California, the direction it was going. It was becoming more and more of a nanny state. At the time, the Republicans and Democrats in Sacramento, the capital, were fairly balanced. That began to change, and eventually it got to the point the Republicans were sort of the party of no. You know, the Democrats would propose something. They had enough Republicans to stop it. And then that went away, and the Republicans show up. They get paid for doing nothing because they can't get anything done. That was pretty much the death knell as far as we are concerned about freedom in California. So we came up here in Labor Day of 10 and looked around. We knew kind of what to expect politically. We said, this is what we need to be. So 3 weeks later, we came back, looked at a few houses, and bought this one. What's interesting.
Okay. With that, Dave, we can open for discussion.
Please switch to gallery view and, well, actually, just stay at speaker view, and we'll go multi-speaker and use the raise the hand function if anybody's got a comment about what's going on. And Sal, can you tie up on Watts and the guns a little tighter? Like, how much guns were floated around in the 60s before Watts?
Oh, I don't have numbers, but that data is available online. I've looked at it before, but you really had the gun purchases explode after that. Yeah. Well, and mind you, the year before Watts was the riot in Harlem, in New York, which also, spurred gun sales. Yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah. So my question to Sal is, we will spotlight for everybody. Is so they take over the government and they've been working on the Second Amendment stuff so that everybody can have as many guns as they want. And all of a sudden, not everybody is on their side, if you will, in terms of how things are being run and what have you. What happens to the Second Amendment when they decide it's not working for them anymore because the people that we were trying to keep down by, working on the Second Amendment stuff now are the people with all the guns? And, what do you think happens at that time?
Well, I think it's important to understand that the Second Amendment tool was designed to say to people, government doesn't work. Your government is bad. These people you need to get rid of your government. So it wasn't even that they wanted everybody to have weapons. They just realized this was a mechanism as a tool for their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal is what you are seeing happening today.
Right.
When you listen to the attitudes that's coming across by the guy, who's talking about let natural selection work, all of that. That attitude wasn't there in 1940. That attitude is something that developed out of this mass campaign. And mind you, the weapons, the Second Amendment is just one of the tools. You have to also bring in abortion, religious rights, taxation, deficits. All of these became tools for having people believe that your government doesn't work.
Okay, I understand that. But what I'm asking is if the people, so everybody has guns, and the government that they want to get rid of actually are those who are in power now. What do you think happens in that scenario?
Well, what happens is as long as the people who take power have control over the military and the police, their firepower will far outmatch the individual who has a weapon in his home. They're also trained to actually shoot people. Mind you, when people, that woman was talking about how, we have to defend ourselves. And I mean, she thinks that if she had to, she could pick up a weapon and easily kill another person. I can go into the military right now. I'm going to have a percentage of them who can't do it. Even when they're in, people are shooting at them. They can't shoot back. It's not that easy. But in the military, we train people to get over their inhibition about hurting other humans and to embrace it. And so that trained force would be going against that untrained force, and pretty quickly they win the day.
Well, to listen to the news, particularly the local news, there are a lot of people that have overcome that inhibition based on the number of shootings we have every single day.
But understand, those are, of all the people who have weapons, that's a very small percentage. It is, what we see on the news, we think is kind of reflective of the whole society. It's reflective of the unusual events. And so what I would suggest is that if those people who are marching in demonstrations today decide to pick up weapons to say, we're going to fight against this autocracy that's taking power, they will be crushed. and it would be and people will succumb to the power very quickly. Mind you, when you look at Nazi Germany, right? Hitler coming to power, there's multiple elections, and he's losing. He's getting each election. He's getting less and less of support. The National Socialists are at a point where they're bankrupt, and it's just then that Hitler gets into power. So I'm just saying, there was a large, the mass population was not in support of that. But that mass population, even though they didn't support it, they succumbed to the power that the state can exact against the population.
They're happy game of Sal.
Yeah, I want you to know I'm really disturbed by Bill Elsey bringing on all these people who are telling us about public health and that it's all going to hell and making people depressed. That's my job. He's stealing my material. I mean, I know this is not uplifting. It doesn't make anybody feel good. We're on a road to perdition, I believe. And again, I hope I'm wrong, but each day seems to validate that assessment. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I was shocked, I guess not too shocked considering the subject of the videos, of them talking about natural selection, survival of the fittest, I suppose they mean, and going back to Darwin. And I thought, they really need an education in what natural selection really means. And it doesn't mean a bunch of people deciding, we're going to get rid of that one, that's weak link, whatever. I don't really think that's what they mean, and somebody needs to clarify that. Maybe the schools need to take up a deeper study of the real meaning of natural selection and survival of the fittest. Go back to Darwin. Now, I wanted to say about Idaho. I had heard that Idaho was a refuge for all these people that are moving out of California in droves, not only because of the fires, but because of strange activities in California, and they do have a strange mindset there. But do you see Idaho as getting into a position of actually being such a community? The way it was portrayed there was that it was an outlaw type community with people with their own mindsets, kind of a subset of the real population of the United States.
I think that when you look at minorities that are well organized and well funded, that they can have an outsized role within a particular society. In Idaho, I don't believe everyone is a right-wing gun maniac. It's a percentage. It's a cohort, and they're centered in this one place. So that they've created this spot to draw people who are like them, and they are powerful and they're well financed, and minorities. Look, the American Revolution was conducted by a minority. There was never a majority of the people who said, yeah, we got to go get away from England. Many remained really kind of neutral because they were afraid to be supporting England, to say, I'm a loyalist. They did that became, people got attacked for being a loyalist. So what you get is people comply. They will try as best as they can to survive within a brutal regime.
Madeline?
Hi, I'm sorry I had somebody come over, so I missed part of this class, but I feel like I try to stay well informed, and I know that Idaho is known for having a lot of militias and stuff. And in fact, I went on vacation there last summer and did some hiking and went to a national park, and it was beautiful. My friends and I did talk to a couple of people just when we were sitting outside at restaurants who had moved from California. I don't know if they were, I don't know why I didn't inquire. I was on vacation, but I've never heard of this Redoubt thing. Why have I never heard about this? I'm going to look up their stuff. I mean, I'm like, holy moly, they're trying to gather a whole enclave of them together, and then what?
Well, if you want to be aware of all these, kind of dark places and people, you would have to go to where I hang out most of the time. Dark places, dark people.
I'm already depressed enough about
right, exactly.
I don't think I can do that.
You don't want to go there. No. Yeah, certainly we look at the news media as being that window onto our world, and they are not. If they cover, what you have is the news media was kind of taken over by consultants not that long ago. And the consultants said, look, we don't need all this reporting. We don't need all these stories. We don't need it. We need to cover these particular issues, and we'll reach the bulk of the population. Those who really want to know more, that's that intellectual group. They're just a small segment of the audience. So we want to give them pablum, and we're gonna if you sit and watch, let's say, CNN, make a list of the stories that are there. Then do that at 6 o'clock. Then at 7 o'clock, go to MSNBC. See if their list follows the same pattern. They're all reporting, or again, go to CBS and look at, they're all marching to the same drum.
But that's why we have to read and not get all our news from.
Well, what happened is really newspapers that used to dig into stuff like that are now gone.
I know. Look what happened to the Washington Post this week.
Right. No,
also, I put it in the chat, but I just wanted to be sure you saw it. Would you please put the name of that movie, that you showed clips, the British guy coming back? Because I'd kind of like to watch that whole movie.
I'll send that to you. It's from a website of top documentaries.
Thanks.
Again, one of those dark places that you don't want to go.
Well, don't forget that when we were growing up and partly into adulthood, the news shows on the networks were not there to make money. They were just there to, disseminate news. And then they decided to make it a profit sector. And that changed everything too, because they wanted people to watch. So they gave them what they thought they wanted to see, I guess.
Well, and look, what you had is the general population depended upon newspapers.
Right.
Not television news. Television news started out at 15 minutes a night.
I'm old enough to remember when it was 15 minutes a night. My parents watched Huntley Brinkley for 15 minutes, and then it was done, and then we had dinner.
In my neighborhood in Brooklyn, we had many stores that were newsstands, and the paper came out in the morning, right? However,
the first one did.
The Daily News and the Mirror came out at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Hey, I grew up in Kansas City. We had the Kansas City Times in the morning and the Kansas City Star in the evening, and they were both delivered to our house every day.
Right. And so what would happen is around 8:30 at night, people would be leaving their houses and walking to the newsstand. Because and as soon as the papers were, you'd have the daily news truck pull up and just throw the paper by the front door for the for the newsstand person to get it. People would be if the newsstand person wasn't there, they would start pulling the paper out from. It would be wrapped in some kind of metal strap, and they'd start jerking the paper out. They couldn't wait. That was our world at that time. I see Bob Goggins smiling. I think he was out there probably stealing some of those papers. Remember when the Daily News cost a nickel? Anyway, it's important to understand that our society is constantly changing and evolving and all of that. And there are people who exploit the situation. In a lot of my undergraduate studies was in studying mass communications. I thought I was going to stay in journalism, and I looked at this studying of mass communications would be beneficial to me in pursuing a career in journalism. Mass communications is not about journalism. Mass communications is about social psychology. It's all about social psychology. And what you have are people who are very well educated in understanding what's going on inside of your brain that you're not even aware of. And they exploit it. They know how to craft a message that you think is about this, but it's really about that. And they are penetrating into your brain. So things like manipulating the Second Amendment and really say that if they were going to be upfront, they'd say, hey, all you white people, you are scared to death of black people. Why don't you get a gun? But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They used it as a tool to craft very sophisticated messaging. And now we have places like American Redoubt.
Sal, is the Idaho situation, is that much different from everybody moving to Forsyth County because they wanted to get away from blacks, or people not wanting to live in the camp of Fulton because they don't want to live in a conservative outside the neutral zone? Don't we all sort of self-segregate to people who are like us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, but it's not even so much. Obviously I'm guessing, but I don't think it's just about race. I think it is about, we have a nice community. We live in a nice place in some suburban setting. I'm not racist, but I don't want anybody coming in here and changing our nice place. And who would that anybody be? So it's, sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I've hit the bell has rung. But if anybody has anything else they want to talk about, whatever, I'm not trying to rush you off. I just trying to learn when to shut up. Not easy for me.
Never shut up.
I really think that for me, one of the things that was very important as a child was to learn the difference between us and the Nazis and the Germans was that we have the ability to speak our mind. And if we had done that, if the Germans had done that, Hitler wouldn't have come to power. And I believe that. And so I have been on this quest. I have been on this quest that I am going to find truth and reveal it and save everybody.
I've abandoned my search for truth. I'm looking for a good fantasy.
Yeah.
And
I
Sal,
want to be saved. I hope you find it.
and I'm Sal. I'm sure there was some Germans who opposed Hitler too. I mean,
Oh,
and they were
that
killed.
guy. There was that guy who got killed who was the priest. But I mean, we opposed Trump, but what good did it do?
No. I totally, but as a child, I didn't know that.
Okay.
That was just something I absorbed.
Yeah.
I mean,
God bless America.
all my mental deficiencies can be traced back to my childhood. Counselors to validate that.
Yes. Probably with everybody.
Any other comments about where we are today with our political circumstance?
Is there any way out of here?
I think it's too late.
Nobody gets out of here alive.
I think it's very depressing to read about the 5,000 or 6,000 FBI agents whose names were turned over to the government, the central government or whatever, because I think if they say one word of opposition to anything, they're out the door. So they're all going to keep quiet, and they're going to be afraid to do sensitive investigations in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very troubled.
That time will only be for 4 years.
Will we last that long?
Oh, you gotta hope.
I cannot. If I were part of the cabal, there'd be no way I would allow midterm elections. Way too risky.
Yeah.
And what happens on the state level then?
What?
How do you think they would not allow them? I mean,
martial law.
Midterm elections are so local.
Martial law. That's how you. I mean, there's mechanisms to do it. If you have the police and the military on your side, no problem.
You have to hope that the military is not totally. I mean, there have been a lot of things done that have alienated the military. Have to hope, cross fingers, that maybe that control won't really be.
Well then, CG.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'm just watching the game plan play out, and it is following a script, and it's not a new script. It's been done before, and the people who have been behind this are very, very wealthy and very, very powerful. And they do not live in the world that you live in. They don't. There's no connection at all. So they will, you may think, well, nobody would do that. Get into their world and you find they're a lot of Elon Musk. I mean, that's what they are. Elon Musk never developed anything. He bought a company. But he's rich, multi-rich, and everybody around him is a sycophant. And so he really thinks that and others like him think that they are. Mind you, if you have gotten rich by selling a commodity and you think, God, I'm brilliant. Look how rich I am. I sold a commodity, something that people have to have. There's no choice. I don't have to come up with a good marketing plan. I don't have to develop anything technical. I don't do anything. All I got to do is you take more and more money. You really start to believe that you are exceptional.
I gotta go, Sal. See you next week.
Okay, everybody, be safe.
Thanks, Sal.
Appreciate it, Sal.
Thanks,
Everybody
Sal.
give a warm applause for Sal. Thank you, Sal.
Thank
For
you.
another non-uplifting presentation.
Okay.
Next time, be more be more up.
Oh, come on. We won't recognize him.
Yeah.
You're killing the format.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
Hey, Sal.
Bye. Take care.